Hello, welcome again to another video. In this video, I'll show you how we use arrays and why do we need arrays. So for this, I'm just going to build a simple console app. I know we have been doing forms app, but the console app will make it a little bit straightforward. So I'll just call this array demo. Oh, array demo. I'd actually created a previous project. All right. So now let's think about a case where I tell you to write a program to ask uh, the user for three numbers, and then the program is going to compute the sum, right? So pretty straightforward. So first we'll ask console.readline. We'll actually just say console.write. Say enter number 1, and then I'll say int number 1 is equal to convert dot to int, because we have to console, remember it's always a string input and we are using strong typecasting here. So int num1 is equal to convert dot int 32 now. Alright, here we need this. Alright, I'm just going to copy paste this code for the second number and the third number. So enter number 2, enter number 3. So now that's all we have to do, and then we create a new sum variable and we say num1 plus num2 plus num3. Just follow a convention here, and then we will print this out. Sum is, and then we say, now we have to convert this to string. So we'll use the toString function that is available inside .NET for all variables that we have created. Alright, let's run. One thing we forgot is to just add a console, which we have been doing is console.readline, or just say console.read so that the screen remains open. Alright, now let's run this. Code runs. Enter number 1, I'll enter 20. Number 2, I'll enter 30. This enter 40. Sum is 90. 40 plus 30 is 70, plus 20, 90. Pretty straightforward. Now let's say we want to extend this program and have 5 numbers, or let's do 7 numbers. You need to ask the user 7 numbers. So following the same thing, we will repeat the code here. So this will be number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7. And now sum is equal to number 6 and number 7. Alright, let's run this now. We are taking 7 numbers as input, and this program is giving the sum of 7 numbers. Just to make it a little easier to enter, I'll just go with simple single digit numbers: 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the sum is 42. 9 plus 8, 17, 23, 29, 34, 38. Oh, sorry, 9, 17, and this is 24, 30, 35, 39, and 42. Pretty straightforward. Now let's say I ask you to do 10 numbers, or even let's increase it to do 100 numbers. So as you can see, you'll have to copy paste and repeat these lines like 100 times if you're entering 100 numbers and asking them for the sum. Similarly, this line here will contain all the 100 numbers. So maybe you can still do it, but what about if I ask you to do 1000 numbers or 10,000 numbers? So you can see where this is going, right? I mean, you'll have to copy paste all these lines of codes. For each number, I'm adding 2 lines of code. For 10,000, I'll have 20,000 lines of code. For 100,000 numbers, I'll have 200,000 lines of code. I mean, at that level, the code is pretty much not maintainable, because remember, the more lines of code you have, the more difficult it is to maintain, and it's really not sustainable. And then we add another complexity. What if I ask you to ask the user how many numbers the user wants to enter, and based on that you compute the sum. Now you can run a loop inside here to do that. So you can ask the number and then compute the sum multiple number of times, or we can use arrays. So first let me show you 2 solutions that are possible here. So I'm going to remove or just leave this code as is. Just we'll comment this out. Just move it outside of the console function so that it becomes a little easier. So this is here. So now, or what we can do is first create our favorite loop variable. We'll say I loop. Now remember, in this case we are just going to repeat this, where we are asking for 7 lines. I loop is equal to 0, I loop is less than 7, and we say I loop. And then you copy this, enter number, and just we can say I loop. And let's add actually the braces here. So we are printing enter number this, and then asking the user for the number, and we should declare int num1 outside the loop, or we can leave it as is, just add another value called sum. And then at the end of this we say sum is equal to sum plus num1, and at the end we can actually print the result. Console.writeLine, and say sum is again I used it with a capital S, just trying to be consistent here. We'll use small sums here. Alright, now let's run this code. Enter number 0, or obviously our index started from 0, so we'll enter 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Also sum is already given as 28. Now we have considerably reduced our number of lines here. Now important thing here is that even if you ask for 10 numbers, all you have to do is increase this number to 10, but the number of lines are going to remain the same. So this is the magic of loops. Now what if I tell you that once you enter all the numbers, you have to print them out again and display the user that some of those numbers that are printed out is going to be the sum that you computed? How are you going to do that? So this is a very good use case where arrays come into play. So first let's see how we can do the numbers here. We have to print it after entering all numbers, so there's absolutely no way, because the only number we have stored is num1. We have to replace this by console. Now num1 is coming as an error because you have to declare it outside the loop. If we declare num1 inside the loop, it can only be called from inside the loop. So now it's more for global function. We should initialize it. Sorry, global variable. So now you can see numbers are this, but it only has one number, and we can check that. Again, enter number 0. So numbers are 7, so it's printing the last number that we entered. Just add a little space there. So how do we fix this? How do we say that we have to go back, capture all the numbers, maintain a record of all the numbers, and then print the numbers out? I mean, really, there's no way you can do this. You can do it here by printing num1, num2, num3, num4, num5, num6, num7 again. But in this case where you are using a loop, that's not possible. This is where arrays come into picture. Now before I delve into and show you the code how arrays are structured, let's look at some basic things, right? I'm just going to use paint program here. When you declare a variable calls, let's say int, sorry, pardon my writing here. Let me actually just rub this out and make it a little bit more clear. Just start from new. So I'm just going to use the text box. When I say int a, when I declare this variable, what does it actually do? Now when you compile the code, you are basically telling the computer or the operating system of that machine to create some space. I'm trying to remove this thing here. To create a space for a variable a. So if this is your memory, let me draw the memory here. So if this is your memory, it has, your memory will have about a few megabytes or gigabytes of space depending on your computer. When you say a, remember we discussed earlier that int composes of 32 bits, or basically 4 bytes, because each byte has 8 bits. This will create a space about 30, or let's just use bytes here. It's going to create about 4 bytes of space in the memory as soon as you declare int a. Now what about if we create another command here called int b? That will create another 4 bytes of space. So if I go back here, four bytes of space have been allocated in memory again. So this is A and this is B. So similarly, if you declare intc, it keeps on adding space here. With arrays, you follow the same concept, except with arrays you can use the same variable name as here to refer to different values. So here A refers to this and B refers to this. But if you use A as an array, or let's actually create a value called C here. If C is an array, both the values which are assigned to A and B can be represented by C alone. So C can actually represent both this and this. And C is going to take the index of the value. So if I type C0, it's going to refer to A. If I type C1, again remember our indexes start from 0, it refers to B. So we are using a single variable called C, but we have to give an index to show which value we are interested in. So C0 is equal to A and C1 is equal to B. This is essentially the core concept of arrays. Now let's go back into our code and see how we declare an array. So I'm to declare an integer array. So just like with everything in C#, I'm going to declare an array called C, give this and say new int, and just give the size of the array. So in this case our array will have 7 values. So I've created an array called C that will store 7 values. Now what I have to do is, rather than using num1, I can actually comment this cover. I don't need num1 anymore. I'm going to use C, and in C I'm going to specify the index of the value. So the beauty of arrays is that you can use it with a loop and it will act as different values, because otherwise, as we saw, the only way you can do this is creating different variable names for each one of them, and this way it's not really scalable. So with arrays you actually define a single variable and then combine it with a numeric value that you can get from a loop or anywhere else to store your numbers. Now if I go here and I just say iLoop, it's going to print that. Another benefit is we actually don't have to do this computation. We can do it at the end because all the values we are entering are being stored. Now how do we print this? Our original use case was that we should input the numbers, compute the sum, but before displaying the sum we need to print all the numbers again. So again I will just execute this loop again. Let's go and copy this and say here console.writeLine numbers that are entered numbers that were entered is essentially this, and then I'm going to say numbers are, and I'm going to print each number in its separate line. All you have to do is just call C with the index and convert it to string, and the numbers will be printed. Now let's see how this works. 1 2 maybe 5 6 7 8 numbers that were entered. Numbers are 1 25 6 7 8 9 1, and the sum is 57. So this way we can store any number of values using a single variable name and a different index. The indexing actually allows that variable to be stored and called from inside a loop. Now this is what we call as a one-dimensional array. In the second part of this video I will show you how we can create a multi-dimensional array. Now for the sake of simplicity we will only go till 2-dimensional arrays, but it's possible to create any number dimensions of arrays, but that again adds to the complexity and should only be done if you really need it. Till then, I will see you in part 2.